Okay, so I was looking forward to this. Madrid versus Al Hilal. Not because it promised fireworks. Not because it screamed epic showdown. No, I was looking forward to it the same way you look forward to a weird dream. You don't know what's going to happen, but you kind of hope something strange does. Real Madrid. The emblem of European tradition, modern muscle, and an occasional flirtation with chaos up against Al Hilal, the Middle Eastern heavyweights who've decided that the best way to get on the world's radar is to barge into these fixtures with a cocktail of grit, composure, and a dash of cinematic absurdity. And they did not disappoint. It ended 1-1. But that sounds far too tidy, far too polite. This was a 1-1 draw the way a hurricane is just windy. There were moments where the game burst into life like a faulty firework. Bright, erratic, potentially dangerous. And then, at other times, it collapsed into itself. Missed chances, stuttered build-ups, fouls that felt more like existential sighs than tactical interventions. Right from the off, it had a smell to it. That unmistakable scent of something's off here. Madrid were wearing their usual crisp whites, Al Hilal looking sharp, but nobody seemed too interested in letting the ball rest. Within the first few minutes, we were treated to a flurry of shots, fouls, and a small sampling of physical comedy, courtesy of Vinicius Jr.'s alleged simulation. Now, you could say he went down easily. Or you could say gravity simply saw him and said, "I choose you." The match settled into this rhythm that didn't really feel like rhythm. It felt like both teams were trying to dance, but to different songs. Madrid were all about bursts, Valverde charging through like someone had lit his boots on fire, Arda Güler trying to audition for the role of next big thing, and Courtois doing that thing where he saves shots but also quietly judges everyone for making him do it. Then there was Al Hilal. They were not here to be intimidated. No, they came with a plan: disrupt, intercept, and every so often, slice open a chance with the kind of precision that makes you wonder why we don't talk about them more. Marcos Leonardo had a few of those nearly moments, those if that goes in, it's a headline moments. But then came the real gut punch of the first half. Madrid score off a break, Gonzalo Garcia slots it away with the coolness of someone buttering toast, Rodrigo assist, blink and you miss it kind of play, and you're thinking, okay, Madrid found their gear, but nope, cue chaos. Marcos Leonardo draws a penalty like he'd read the defender's diary and knew exactly what he'd do. Up steps Ruben Neves. Ice cold. Bottom right, 1-1. And just like that, we're all back where we started, but slightly more tired, slightly more baffled, and definitely more entertained. Honestly, I don't even think the players were angry about conceding. They looked more like commuters who realized they missed their stop and now have to make peace with going to the end of the line. And from there, oh boy, it only got weirder. The second half began with a thud, like someone dropping a grand piano onto a trampoline. You're expecting bounce, lift, maybe a little drama, but instead, everything just kind of slumped. The restart had barely taken its first breath when Madrid, somehow, almost rattled the net. Arda Güler, that little magician with the face of a choir boy and the ambition of a rock star, cracked the crossbar so hard you could hear the collective gasp ripple through time zones. Assisted by Vinicius, who had shaken off the drama of the first half like a diva reapplying mascara between acts. But let's be honest, this wasn't one of those halftimes where teams come out refreshed and reborn. No, this was one of those what are we even doing second halves. Madrid looked like they'd been told at halftime that there was a surprise tax audit waiting for them at full time. Al Hilal, meanwhile, carried themselves with that rare mix of defiance and opportunism. Like a team that knows they're not expected to win, but also knows nobody told them they couldn't. Gonzalo Garcia, bless him, had a couple of headers that screamed should have been. One in particular, saved point blank by Yassine Bounou, who, by the way, is a walking contradiction. Calm eyes, frantic hands. He's the kind of goalkeeper who doesn't just stop shots, he disrupts trajectories. He unsettles belief. He makes you question if that ball was ever actually going in, or if you hallucinated it all. As the match lurched towards the last quarter, the tempo started climbing. Not gracefully, but like a ladder with missing rungs. Players were going down, coming off, getting subbed, getting carded. It felt less like a football match and more like a really aggressive Shakespearean play with fouls instead of monologues. Valverde had a shot saved, then another one blocked. Brahim Diaz came in like a man on a mission, only for that mission to get lost in translation somewhere around the 18-yard box. And then the penalty. Fran Garcia goes down. You could almost hear the dramatic zoom in. Referee points to the spot. The whole universe pauses. Valverde steps up. Everything you've ever known about Real Madrid, this behemoth club of destiny and drama, tells you he's going to bury it. But Bunu, again, decides that narrative is for cowards. He guesses right, sprawls, and punches destiny in the teeth. Chaos. Not the good kind. The kind of chaos where Madrid fans are eating their scarves and Al Hilal's bench starts doing that bouncing up and down thing that makes it look like they're about to break into synchronized swimming. 7 minutes of added time. And every one of those minutes felt like the football gods were just spinning a wheel of fortune labeled miss, block, corner, and somehow still not a goal. Tchouaméni misses a header, Güler fluffs a golden chance, Valverde has one blocked, Arda has one miss wide. By the end, Madrid looked like a team trying to find their car in a parking lot that no longer exists. And when the final whistle blew, it wasn't jubilation, it wasn't even frustration. It was the pure, unfiltered fatigue of two teams who knew they could have won, probably should have won, but also maybe neither deserved to win. Honestly, that 1-1 never looked so emotionally complicated. Let's talk about these two teams. Not just what they did, but what they meant. Real Madrid. The name alone sounds like it should be carved into marble, doesn't it? A footballing empire, a brand, a mythology. And yet, for large stretches of this match, they felt less like kings and more like interns trying to remember their logins. This wasn't the Madrid of legend. This was the Madrid of, well, we'll probably figure it out later. Their identity flickered. You could see the muscle memory in how they moved. Bellingham's short bursts, Vinicius Jr.'s swagger, Valverde's relentless engine, but the orchestra felt out of sync. Like they had the sheet music, but everyone brought different instruments. Madrid, at their best, are like a storm rolling in from the coast. This was more like a rain that forgot where to fall. And Al Hilal? They were everything Madrid weren't. Not glamorous, not romanticized, but coherent. Committed. Organized like a family dinner where everyone brought a dish that somehow matched. They weren't interested in playing Madrid's game. They came to drag them into something messier, tighter, a little more uncomfortable. And they did. Ruben Neves played like a man who wanted to remind everyone he still exists. He was everywhere. Snapping into tackles, switching play, taking the penalty like he'd done it with his eyes closed in a dream. Milinkovic-Savic. What a name. What a presence. He doesn't run. He patrols. He doesn't just pass. He sets tone. And Bunu, we've covered this already. The guy could save a memory. Just an absurd, otherworldly presence between the posts. And what's fascinating is how these two sides felt like mirrors that couldn't quite line up. Madrid with their glamour, their depth, their impossibly talented bench, looked at times disjointed. Al Hilal, with less shine, less hype, less of everything, looked unified. Not perfect, not silky, but united in purpose. That's a dangerous thing. Tactically, it was a weird soup. Madrid tried to go wide, tried to go quick, tried to go through the lines, and found themselves bouncing off a bounce Hilal side that closed space like they were afraid of fresh air. Al Hilal, meanwhile, soaked it up and then pounced. Not often. But just enough to keep Madrid nervous. They weren't trying to overwhelm. They were trying to disrupt. And they did. With every foul, every delay, every perfectly timed challenge, they turned Madrid's possession into frustration. There was also an emotional contrast. Madrid looked like a team that expected something to happen for them. Hilal looked like a team that knew nothing would happen unless they made it happen. And that, more than any tactical breakdown or statistical graph, is where the heart of this draw lived. You could see it in the reactions. Hilal's bench erupted at every clearance, every block like it was a goal. Madrid's bench looked like they were waiting for their Uber to arrive. Two teams, one Goliath dragging its feet, one underdog sharpening its teeth, and in the middle, a result that told you everything you needed to know. Let's zoom in now, not on tactics or formations, but on the faces, the feet, the flickers of individual defiance or despair that stitched this madness together. Because if football is a novel, Then these players were the characters we followed through the most confusing chapter. Start with Gonzalo Garcia. The kid scored Madrid's goal, and for about 10 minutes he looked like he was going to write the whole book. That finish, it wasn't loud. It was surgical. The kind of strike that doesn't ask questions. Just arrives, signs the guest book, and leaves. But then, he faded, like someone switched off the spotlight. He had headers later on that could have won it, but Bunu made sure he didn't get to rewrite the ending. And speaking of Bunu, just hand him a cape. He was absurd. Not just with the penalty save, that was the headline moment, sure, but it was the other stuff, the positioning, the control, the way he stared down Madrid attackers like they'd just insulted his haircut. There's a calm madness in the way he plays. A goalkeeper who turns panic into art. He didn't just stop Madrid from winning, he mocked the idea that they ever had control. Then there's Arda Güler. I don't know how a human being can look so harmless 1 second and then hit the bar the next like he's kicking planets out of orbit. He's all left-footed wizardry and nervous energy. Missed his chance in stoppage time too. Frustrating, yes, but also weirdly poetic. You get the feeling he'll be haunted by that one, like an actor who forgets his line during opening night. Valverde. Federico Valverde. A metronome with caffeine in his bloodstream. The guy never stops. He's the friend who shows up too early and won't leave. And yet his most memorable contribution was also his worst, the penalty. And here's the thing. He didn't miss it because he's bad. He missed it because Bunu's entire existence is basically a trap for confident midfielders. Bellingham had a quiet one. He was more presence than performance. Like a famous guest star on a sitcom who shows up, smiles, waves, and exits, he didn't force the game. He just floated through it. And maybe that's the problem. Madrid needed teeth. He brought vibes. Modric came on like a ghost of seasons past. Everything he touched had class, but none of it stuck. Like an echo of something beautiful that no longer affects the present. Tchouaméni got on the end of a good header and sent it into orbit. He was there, he worked hard, and yet somehow you're left wondering if he played at all. Vinicius? Ah yes, the walking paradox. Flash, flare, chaos. Got a yellow for simulation, looked dangerous for spells, but couldn't break the game open. He's the kind of player who demands attention even when he's doing absolutely nothing useful. And for Al Hilal, Ruben Neves stood out like a street lamp in fog. He scored, he tackled, he passed with intelligence. He annoyed Madrid fans with the sort of poise that makes you want to scream. Milinkovic-Savic was just behind him in terms of impact, quietly essential, constantly present, like the hum of a refrigerator you don't notice until it stops. Malcolm showed flashes. Salem Al-Dawsari ran like a man trying to solve 3 problems at once. Marcos Leonardo created the penalty and nearly bagged one early. Al Hilal didn't have stars, they had performers. And all of this, all these moments combined into a match that didn't answer questions. It asked them, it whispered, it shouted, it stumbled, and then ended without permission, 1-1. No victors, just witnesses. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.